Welcome to the first practice of soothing or supportive touch and self-compassion break. The following is a two-part practice, and it is a core practice developed by Dr. Christopher Grimmer and Dr. Kristen Neff, and is resourced from the Mindful Self-Compassion Teacher Guide from the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion in San Diego, California. The practice of supportive touch and taking a self-compassion break is beneficial to use when we encounter difficult emotions or come upon a difficult situation. Under periods of stress, the body reacts by releasing a cascade of stress hormones called cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones, physiologically, can cause us to become imbalanced, and we can experience increased blood pressure, increased cholesterol, and increased blood sugars, just to name a few things. When we learn to gently lean into our pain and suffering and make space for it, without judgment, and apply a soothing or supportive touch, this act of kindness, in response to our pain and suffering, elicits a response from the brain to release oxytocin. Oxytocin rises and acts as a natural antidote to the prior rising levels of cortisol and adrenaline that occur under periods of stress, thereby helping us to regain our balance in the midst of pain and suffering, which allows us to respond to the emotion or situation in a new way. And in this way, we develop a new relationship to our pain and suffering. Now, as with all practices, if you feel stressed or overwhelmed or triggered by the practice, please ensure you do what feels best for you. Please feel free to refrain from participating fully if you find yourself overwhelmed. The idea here is not to make things more difficult for you, but to help support you in a time of need. If you feel yourself resisting the exercise, perhaps more rising muscle tension, physically agitated, or over-intellectualizing it, or even becoming distracted, then it is important to find what you need in this moment. Please refer to our safety section in the second podcast for further safety strategies to consider. So I'm going to break the practice into the two components. The first will be the soothing touch or supportive touch piece. What's important to note is that there are two universal triggers of compassion: soothing touch and gentle vocalizations. And that's why physical touch is a gateway to self-compassion. First, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes fully or partially, again, whatever's most comfortable for you, and just to work at connecting with your inner experience. Now I'm going to lead you through a series of gestures just to see if you can find a gesture which is genuinely soothing for you. So again, just taking a few easy breaths and just starting with placing one hand over your heart. And now, perhaps placing two hands over the heart. Adding one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly. Now I'm placing two hands on the belly. Maybe placing one hand on the cheek. Now cradling your face in both your hands. And maybe try gently stroking your arms. And then maybe one hand held by the other hand in your lap. Now taking a moment to silently explore which of these soothing touches resonates with you for the next minute or so. And if there's a gesture that you would like to try that wasn't mentioned, please feel free to do so. Now, with your eyes remaining partially or fully closed, I'm going to take you through the second piece of this practice, which is called the self-compassion break. I want to invite you to bring to mind a situation in your life that is difficult, that is causing you stress, such as a health problem, a relationship problem, a work problem, or perhaps a friend who is struggling. Now, please choose a problem in the mild to moderate range, not a big problem. What we don't want to do is we don't want to overwhelm ourselves as we're first learning the skill of self-compassion. See if you can allow yourself to see, hear, and feel your way into the problem to the extent that you experience some uneasiness in your body. Where do you feel it the most? See if you can make contact with the discomfort that you feel in your body. Then say to yourself, slowly, silently, and kindly, this is a moment of suffering. And that's mindfulness. You might say to yourself, ouch, or this hurts, or even saying, wow, this is stressful. Now recognizing and saying to yourself, suffering is part of living. That's common humanity. You might also say to yourself, I am not alone. We all struggle in our lives. Or perhaps, this is how it feels when a person struggles in this way. Now, put your hands over your heart or wherever it feels soothing, feeling the warmth and gentle touch of your hands. And as you're doing that, saying to yourself, may I be kind to myself. That's self-kindness. You may also say to yourself, may I give myself what I need in this moment. Or may I accept myself as I am? Or perhaps, may I live in love? Now, if you're having difficulty finding the right words, imagine that a dear friend or loved one is having the same problem as you. What would you say to that person? Heart to heart. If your friend were to hold just a few of your words in their mind, what would you like them to be? What message would you like to deliver? And now, can you offer the same message to yourself? And now we're going to release the practice. And when you're ready, just slowly and gently opening your eyes. Now I just wanted to add a few additional notes to this practice. The first is, although we taught this practice as a reflective meditation, when you do this enough with practice and training, it only takes a minute to apply in daily life. And that the self-compassion break comes from Dr. Kristen Neff's work in Mindful Self-Compassion, and it uses the 3 phrases that evoke the 3 components of self-compassion. We also add the soothing touch as an expression of self-kindness. Now, if you struggled to find a gesture that was soothing for you, or you are feeling uncomfortable with the gesture, the invitation really is to continue to explore what works best. Now, I know that for myself personally, putting my hand over my heart is not the most comfortable. What works for me, because it's subtle and I can do it anywhere, is taking one hand and putting it on the forearm of the other hand. So I can do that pretty much anywhere I am. So it's really about finding a gesture that you find supportive and comfortable using. And the invitation now is to practice the self-compassion break and supportive touch throughout the week, perhaps using either or both during times where you are struggling.